Hey folks, we are halfway through Season 2 of eXhuming the X-Files here on the Outpost Unknown YouTube channel. Episode 12, Aubrey. My name is Matthew, he is Jeremy.
Hey everybody.
And guess what, Jeremy? This place takes place largely in Nebraska, where we are right now, in towns that do not exist, but Nebraska nevertheless. So if you've listened, folks, if you listen to our past couple episodes, we're heading down. We're on a downward trajectory in Season 2.
We're in the doldrums.
Yes, we are in the doldrums for sure, and we're hoping that Aubrey's going to bring it back around. Let's find out. Jeremy, hopefully you're in a little better mood on this one in terms of watching and everything. You had your tea, you took a nap.
Oh God, it was a good nap too, let me tell you what. But all right, so it starts with John Locke from Lost, is a homicide investigating cop.
I know him as the stepfather. The horror franchise, The Stepfather. He's an evil stepfather.
He's a great actor.
Mm-hmm.
You hear him talking about a razor, some other chick got cut up. He wants to sit in his office and talk about stuff, and this girl keeps following him around, like in the police station, not letting him work. And he's like, I've got shit to do. And she writes down on this little pad, I'm pregnant. And he looks at it, he's like, oh.
He's like, shit.
All right, now meet me here at this address. We'll talk about it later. And so she's like, oh, really? You're going to meet me at that fucking Fleabag motel again? Really? But she goes.
And Motel Black. Strange name for a motel.
She shows up. She gets to the door or something. She sees these bright ass headlights like she's about to get abducted. But instead, she has this weird flashback where some dude goes out to a field and dumps a body into a hole and starts covering it up with dirt. And then they zoom in. No, wait. No, they didn't zoom in on the chest. She ends up finding this body in real life, digging it up with her hands in the middle of the night and finding an old FBI badge attached to the guy's chest. And then we get the title screen.
FBI skeleton. Yeah, this opening prologue, again, it wasn't hooking me. I think the best X-Files episodes have a prologue that really hooks you. You're like, all right, what's going to happen here? This one, not so much. Certainly not in the last episode. That didn't hook me, and this one was not hooking me either. So going into after the credits, I was kind of thinking like, what are we in for here? Am I going to be able to make it through this one? That's how I was feeling. How are you feeling after this prologue?
The prologue wasn't as bad as the rape one. It wasn't as bad as the weird ass shooting the snake with her brother, Scully's brothers, early in the season. Like it wasn't great. The motel thing to the hallucination about the dead body was a really stupid shot, but John Locke from Lost was in it. So I'm excited. I'm excited for this episode every time that I see actors or actresses that I know do good work.
Okay, that's fair enough.
So
I did make a note here. I hate the slow motion in this. There is a certain type of slow motion. And for anybody who's out there listening, when you're thinking about slow motion, there's like the Zack Snyder slow motion, right? Where it's shot at like 1,000 frames per second and you can slow it down. It's perfectly smooth and you can do whatever you want. And then there's a slow motion that's in the X-Files where it is like, no, we shot this at 24 frames per second, but we're going to slow it down. It's all choppy and blurry. I fucking hate it. And it's all over this episode. I just had to get off that tangent off my chest. Fucking hate it.
Oh, I feel this
so much.
Back. Mulder and Scully are talking about this woman. She found this dead body of this old FBI guy that was like the first person to kind of put a name to serial killings, or at least was blazing that trail before him and his partner.
Cheney and Ledbetter.
Yeah, cool name.
Yeah.
And then what is it?
My note here is prequel series ? because Mulder meant, or whoever is talking about these FBI agents mentioned that. I think it was Mulder, right? He's saying, oh, they were kind of like pre X Files, before X Files, and their views were not looked upon fondly by the FBI. And I was like, would be kind of cool. I know there's an X Files reboot that's being put together right now, where they're going to create like a new version of the X Files. I don't think David Duchovny or Gillian Anderson will be a part of it. But wouldn't it be cool? Would you like to see a prequel series of the X Files where it was like, let's say 1940s or 1950s, and it followed some FBI agents who are kind of like setting the ground floor for what the X Files would become and be labeled as going forward? I think that'd be kind of a cool show idea.
Sure. I mean, if we got to see what the FBI was doing live during the Roswell crash, probably would make some good television.
That'd be cool. Yeah, I think it'd be fun.
Um, but yeah, I don't know, because now that I think about it, the closest thing that what you're talking about is the later Men in Black movies when they went back in time, and that shit was just lame. So I don't know. I don't know if it would be any good.
In the hands of a talented creator, it could be good.
Have you seen what is it? The first season of Mindhunter on Netflix?
I don't think so. I think I've always been told that it's good, but I don't think I've watched it.
I think that's
Maybe I have
kind of
to.
in the vein of what you're talking about without the supernatural or aspect of it, and
Okay,
it's very good for 2 seasons. And I don't know where the hell it went
sounds
after that,
good.
but
I'll check it out.
so Mulder has a great line because the woman that dug up the corpse, her name is BJ, and he wants to go because he's always been intrigued by women named BJ.
We knew a woman named BJ in high school.
God, she was fine too. But
She
anyway,
was.
let me see. They meet up, they start talking to her. John Locke shows up as her protector or something, and he doesn't want her talking to the FBI seemingly
Yeah,
at all because they're asking her about their interest is not how the body got in the hole, as he said. They're interested in finding out how she knew to go to this place out in this fucking field in the middle of the night and start digging a hole with her
right.
hands. And Locke seems to want to get her away from that, which is weird. It's kind of suspicious. Like, did he have something to do with it?
What
So, go
you
ahead.
know, what's funny about that, and maybe this is what you were going to mention just now. Um, Mulder is completely like oblivious to all of the signs that these two are having an affair. It's actually Scully. She immediately is like, "Oh yeah, they're having an affair," and Mulder's like, "What? How would you even know something like that?" And Scully's
The
kind of like,
truth is,
"I'm a woman. Yeah, we can
no,
see it."
okay. No, she walks up to that woman in the bathroom and just starts saying all of these things about her. Like, he's married, right? You're pregnant, aren't you? Like, how
But
did you?
she doesn't say that till after she tells Mulder that they're already having an affair, though. She already knew that they were having an affair immediately in that first interaction.
Yeah, and she goes to the bathroom and starts telling her all of this shit about how it's complicated. Like, she guessed a bunch of things about this lady's life out of the fucking blue. Like, this is, Fox Mulder jumping to conclusions level
Female
women's
intuition,
intuition.
Jeremy.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, 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 yeah. Okay. Okay. So they find that uh there's some killings going on. The last thing that these FBI guys were investigating were a trio of murders in Aubrey, Missouri, right across the border from Nebraska,
Yeah.
where the word sister was being carved into the chest of these women. And they find that the skeleton of the FBI guy that they dug up also had razor carvings into his bones, and they're trying to figure out what the word is. And the whole time I'm sitting there like it's fucking Wheel of Fortune, and I know what the word is, and the people behind the wheel just don't have the foggiest. Like, it's brother, it's brother. It says sister over here. It's brother, and they just can't figure it out until BJ helps them out. But They did it all through digital scanning. Like they're in this tiny town in Missouri. It's got to be population like 1,600. They're like, we got to find a digital scanner so we can scan all these bones and then run the comparisons between the cut marks
Yeah.
between them. It's like that shit was dope. Who had that in 1994 in fucking bumfuck nowhere, Missouri?
Nobody.
Nobody. Nobody has that stuff now. But okay. So the BJ is having nightmares about the killer, about these women dying, and it's like, okay, is her baby like this reincarnated FBI guy?
Yeah.
Maybe that's what I started thinking. Is because they've done that shit previously, and they do have a tendency to revisit the well sometimes. Um, she said like they never come back to it, and I never understood why they went through the trouble of doing it in the first place. But she says she's staring at a mirror. She sees a dude in this house that this gal got murdered in, and behind her is a drawing on a wall. And she's like, "It's a long. It looks like the Washington Monument, only it's tall and skinny like that. But then there's like a round circle next to it. And in my mind just goes directly to the gutter because if it weren't for the gutter, my mind would be homeless. Like they're using this whole excuse to talk about cock and balls. Like, can you draw it for me? And so she draws this like triangle cock and balls. They never talk about this picture ever again. they just they wanted to waste some time doing
They
it.
love drawing pictures on this show, whether it's titty foot, whether it's the crazy drawing of the ghosts, and then in the last episode, whether it's this, they just love having people draw shit on this show.
Whether good or just absolutely terrible.
I do want a titty foot T-shirt though.
We should make them.
That's
So,
that's gonna happen.
um, what is it? Old girl was it? Yeah. So she's BJ is flipping through this because she knows something about, or she has this draw. She wants to go flip through old mug shots from 1940, 1942 or something. She ends up finding the face of the guy that was staring back at her in the mirror.
Yeah.
So she tells Mulder and Scully. They find that this guy was arrested in 1945 in Nebraska for raping and attempted murder because he carved sister into this girl's chest, but she got away. And because small town Nebraska or small town Midwest, it wasn't linked to these killings across the border. Though,
Yeah.
if that was happening and it was that close, that would have been big news everywhere. But that aside, he got imprisoned in 1945, got let out in the 90s or 80s or some shit like that. So they went to go visit him to see if he was the killer.
Yeah.
This guy is creepy looking.
he's got some problems. He's got some skin issues.
He's smoking with an oxygen
Yeah.
mask, which, kaboom, but whatever.
That's what I wrote down. I was like, this dude is just sitting there smoking with his oxygen mask. I will point out that they're going to Gainesville, Nebraska. That's where this guy's living. There is no Gainesville, Nebraska.
Nope.
Then they say in the past he lived in Terrence, Nebraska. There's no Terrence, Nebraska. And then they actually drive later on to Edmond, Nebraska. There's no Edmond, Nebraska. And I wrote this down as a question. Why would you not just use actual towns in Nebraska? Like, why would you not just, why would you make up towns? I know like Stephen King does it, right? Like, there is no Gatlin, Nebraska, where Children of the Corn takes place. But why, as a writer, wouldn't you say, you know what? I'm going to use Minden. This psycho is going to live in Minden, Nebraska, and that's
Broken
where we go.
Bow.
Yeah, Broken Bow. Do you have any thoughts on that as to why a writer would not use actual towns?
If I were to guess, probably something stupid about having to pay royalties to the town itself
Hmm.
for using its likeness.
Okay, maybe. This is the
Um,
second time that Nebraska has been shown in X-Files. In Shadows, the end, that lady moves to Omaha, and she's at a job in Omaha, Nebraska. So Nebraska in each season so far.
They pull up to this old dude's house. I have a note here. You could see a hill behind the guy's house, so clearly this is not Nebraska.
Yeah.
They do great camera work with this guy's face. Like he's not doing
Yeah.
well, but the way they shaded him, how crazy his eyes were, like their camera work on filming creeps in the X Files is second to none. They're so
Yeah.
good at setting up that atmospheric feel when,
Yeah, and
especially when talking to a crazy
he's got those sores like all over his face or whatever. He just looks like he's got syphilis or something. You're like, I don't want to be anywhere near this old guy. It's gross.
guy. Yep. Then we come back to BJ. She wakes up in the middle of the night, blood all over her chest. She stands up, looks at the mirror, sees Coakley is the name of the killer guy in
Yeah.
Nebraska, but young Coakley in the mirror behind her. She freaks out. Okay, goes to the bathroom, realizes that the word sister is cut into her chest. And then she has this whole hallucination where the other FBI guy got buried underneath some floorboards in a house, and apparently just immediately runs over to that house with a crowbar, runs down in the basement in the middle of the night, and just starts pulling up floorboards. So they call the cops. The FBI shows up. They find this other FBI agent's body.
Yeah.
So they go. It's like, all right, it's time to talk to this girl that got away. They're trying. They just don't know who it is or how it's possible. So they go visit a Mrs. Thibodeau, Nebraska. French names, Cajun names,
Yeah.
big here in Nebraska.
Well, and,
Not Falls.
Grand Island was a French settlement back
What?
in the. Yes.
I did not
They were
know
they were
this.
they were trapping beavers.
Where was on the Platte?
Yes.
Just open ground. Like we got it. All right, all
There were
right.
French people here.
Wait. Um, what is it? They talk to this lady and find out that she got away and that she ended up getting pregnant from the encounter with Coakley. And so they're like, okay, the whatever the the rape baby, we're getting rape back in this show, which is not good. Uh she gave up the rape baby for adoption. We got to track down this rape baby so that we can figure out who's actually doing these murders.
Yeah. A lot of sexual assault in the last couple episodes of the X Files. It's a plot point now. Two episodes in a row. I don't know how I feel about that. It just feels icky and gross.
On the brighter note, we do find out why Mulder eats so many sunflower seeds.
Yeah.
Did you write a note about that?
Let me see. Where is it at? I know I mentioned it. Yeah, Mulder's dad eating sunflower seeds. So Mulder is sitting there and he's having a conversation with Scully about the thing is like how is this spirit or something of this killer going through, but Mulder's got this theory that it's actually like, what does he call it, genetic memory or something, where and he says, hey, my dad liked eating sunflower seeds and I eat sunflower seeds, but do I only eat them because it was passed down like a genetic memory through my father that I like these things? And so that's kind of like the context of why he's always eating sunflower seeds.
I think that's bullshit because he also said in that same scene that he used to wake up from nightmares to the sound or hearing the sound of his father munching on sunflower seeds,
Yeah.
and it comforted him. I think the correlation between waking up from a horrible nightmare to the comfort of your dad making those noises, he's using the sunflower seeds to comfort himself. It has nothing to do with genetic memory, but okay.
You should
But
be my therapist.
but he's using that point to say that the urge to kill might be passed down from generation to generation.
Right.
And so they do end up tracking down Coakley's granddaughter, and guess who? It's BJ.
Yeah. Didn't see that one coming.
BJ goes after Mrs. Thibodeau and cuts on her a little bit, but doesn't do the job because
The ammonia in
she
the
cle-
face, man.
Oh yeah, yo, that was great.
She
That
just
was
grabs that bottle of ammonia and boom, splashes it in her
Flash.
face. I'm like, ooh.
It burns her up a little bit. Ugh.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's not doing good. But she gets away from her for a little bit and then ends up on the same landing where Coakley raped her back in the day. And she convinces her, like, no, you don't need to do this. We need to do this to the guy, not us. It's his fault, and this is not what you want. And she cuts on her a little bit anyway, but ends up leaving and going after Coakley. And then she has a great line. I love it. She kind of gets this husky male persona thing going on when she's doing the murder portion of her stuff. Like she is Coakley or Coakley is enhanced or going or in her body, but while she's going after Coakley himself, she says, "You know the rules. This doesn't stop until you're dead." Like, so good.
And the creepy dude, his eyes are so like he is terrified. This actor did a really good job because he comes across as like this asshole the whole time. Like they pull this guy into to interrogate him because she's like, oh, he was definitely the one, blah blah blah. And he's like, look, man, give me my fucking lawyer. Is essentially he's like, I'm not speaking shit to you cops anymore. And it's like he acts like this just belligerent kind of asshole to everybody. And then like when she's coming at him, like he looks terrified. Like he knows this is the end. So he did a really good job acting. Really, really good job.
He did. God. Ugly ass dude. Um, but of course they didn't stop until he was dead. She got him a little bit, but then Mulder busted in and doesn't see anything going on other than Coakley is in the corner still breathing.
Hmm.
All of a sudden he gets blasted in the noggin with the oxygen tank. Like BJ gets a hold of it.
He'd be dead. You see
Yeah.
how hard she hit him? He'd
Yeah.
be
Have you ever
comatose.
lifted one of those tanks before?
Yes,
Like,
they're,
yeah.
they're fucking heavy.
They
He'd
don't they
be dead.
don't they don't have any give to them. But
Mulder should be dead. The X Files is over.
blasts him in his noodle with it and then sits on his chest, holds up a razor right to the same spot where the other girl in blood cut him with the razor.
Yeah.
Thankfully, BJ's not into blood sex because. And then what is it? The cop shows up with Locke
With
shows up with
Scully. Yeah.
Scully, and they convince him to get off of Mulder.
Yeah. I wrote here, razor up to Mulder's throat. Scully would have just ended her right there. Like Scully sits there, she's got her gun pointed, like always, and Scully does not shoot this bitch. I feel like she would have. She's
Probably.
got a razor up to Mulder's throat. I think she would have just taken that chick out.
Mozambiqued her two in the chest. One of the
Yes,
sure.
absolutely. And then we get and then the end, of course, got kind of like a happy ending, but I guess not happy for that lady. She's kind of like in an insane asylum, and we get another episode where Scully narrating what happens afterwards. It's like, oh, yeah, she's like in this psych ward now, and she's under suicide watch because she already tried to abort the baby once
Yeah.
before, and they won't let her kill the baby. And then it's like, obviously, the hint is like this genetic killer stuff is going to be passed on through her baby, which is a boy, and like Coakley will be kind of like reborn in a way down the line. So, yeah, that's the episode. What'd you think of this one?
I enjoyed it more than the last two combined. I John Locke's character, like they wasted his acting talent because they didn't let him do anything in this episode of
Yeah, he
value.
does. He does nothing.
But between um BJ was okay. BJ was definitely really good in the last third of this episode, whereas before then I
Yeah.
really didn't care a whole lot. But once she became the killer persona, I thought she was very, very good. And
Yep.
with Coakley himself, the old Coakley, Jesus, what a fucking creep. He played it really, really well, and I enjoyed it. It was just not dealing with the government, no aliens or conspiracy theories, just some crazy shit going on in Missouri and Nebraska, and totally acceptable, passable, good episode of X Files.
Yeah, I like this one. When I was watching these, I was like, man, I wish this is kind of what Red Museum would have focused on, just a specific thing, and ran with it. There was one note I had that I enjoyed. It was Mulder and Scully in the car, and they were kind of having like this cute banter back and forth, and Scully something about a wild hunch, and Mulder's like, I've never had any wild hunches, and they have
Yeah.
that kind of like moment where she's kind of like laughs at him, like, what are you
Okay.
yeah, and that sort of thing. So I liked all of that. This one, it kept my attention. I was actually curious and interested where it was going to go. The prologue, I wasn't really into it, but as it went through, I was like, okay, I love murder mysteries and that kind of stuff. Like, when I had cable, Investigation Discovery was like my channel. I was just sitting there like watching all the stuff, and Cold Case Files is one of my favorite shows, and stuff like that. So I liked that kind of murder mystery cold case element that they were going for here. So yeah, I enjoyed this episode. Wouldn't say it's amazing, but certainly, like you said, much better than Excelsis Day for sure. We've gone back up. Trajectory has gone back up from a low point there. Some fun facts I found out about this one. Aubrey was written by Sarah Charno, making it her first writing contribution to the series. Charno's initial script revolved around the concept of 50-year-old murders and the transfer of genetic memory, before she expanded the premise, incorporating elements of another story idea revolving around a female serial killer. Glenn Morgan and James Wong, who had written for The X-Files before, helped Charno refine her story, and the script was revised shortly before shooting, which resulted in newer scenes being added during production, such as the scene in which BJ attacks Mulder. During the casting process, Morgan and Wong suggested that the show use Morgan Woodward, who had previously worked with them on the Fox series 21 Jump Street. Terry O'Quinn later earned the nickname Mr. 1013 due to his many appearances in shows and movies affiliated with 1013 Productions, the company that produced The X-Files, including Millennium. Series creator Chris Carter was happy with the finished episode, later noting, quote, I think it came out great, unquote, and that Rob Bowman came through for us and gave us an excellent job. Bowman, and let me see, I believe he directed it. Yeah, this was directed by Rob Bowman. He said Rob Bowman himself later declared that he was proud of the scene in which BJ wakes up with blood on herself. Carter was also pleased with the episode's casting. He called Morgan Woodward excellent and said that Deborah Strang's performance was top-notch, and Strang's performance was later submitted for an Emmy nomination, although she did not make the final list. So there you go. There's Aubrey. Any other final thoughts that you have on that?
Yeah. I mean, Nebraska is represented again. That's kind of cool. I think that's awesome, but
it's cool. I wish it would have been actual towns so that we could be like, haha, Grand Island, home of the French. You're gonna go to Wikipedia now. You're gonna like fact check me on that French thing. I know it's real. French check. Grand Island.
No, I'm. You know what? I'm gonna take you at face value. I believe you.
Good.
I believe you.
Good. That's what the X-Files is all about. Belief. So thank you everyone for listening to another episode of Exhuming the X-Files here on the Outpost Unknown YouTube channel. We'll be back next Friday with a look at an episode called Irresistible. Don't forget to hit that like and subscribe. You can also email us at outpostunknown@gmail.com if you have a specific point that you want to make about that. Probably easier since a lot of these we won't see the episodes until the future, your comments and whatnot. So thanks again for listening, and we'll see you next Friday.